This episode will be about the prophecies of Mother Shipton, but also about the underreported Central European tornado a couple of days ago. And by the way, just looking at the images from that, I think the advice from the previous episodes to use only vacuum packing for all your supplies, which means also waterproof, that is obviously becoming more and more relevant, along with the advice to have a couple of separate hiding places for your supplies. So there are so many versions of the prophecies attributed to Mother Shipton. Some people even doubt if she's a real person or even just a symbol, that it is actually impossible to understand which of them are the original historic prophecy and which have been edited over time to suit the development of the events as the contemporary people see them. However, it is sure that Mother Shipton, whatever she is, symbol or a real person, was very famous. And the other sure thing is that the link which I provide for the text which I have chosen for this video, at least that is at least a couple of decades old. So a couple of decades is barely historic, it's more like modern, but yet it is old enough to be a little bit too accurate to be just a guess. Looking at the new developments during these few decades, because before that I remember these same verses were published, they were not conjured just a couple of weeks ago. And also they seem to follow very accurately, absolutely accurately, the other more detailed prophecies of proven prophets, which surely didn't prophesize just by copy and paste older texts, but proved in reality that they did have indeed mystic sources. So some parts of the text which I'm using for this video, I could find them in books which are a few hundred years old. Other parts I couldn't find. But because they describe our reality much better than the high-tech news agencies of the modern world, I personally think that the Shipton poetry is of value, although its true origin cannot be traced anymore. And what I admire most is the Shipton style, absolutely accurate language. Just look at this. A man shall walk as if asleep. He does not look. He may not peep. These are the people hypnotized by their cell phones, walking off cliffs, walking into traffic without noticing it, absolutely hypnotized. Although she means, I think, the deeper level of hypnosis, and that is the state in which most people are nowadays. Even when they are not using their cell phone, they are practically programmed in their decisions by the cell phones. That is what she actually means. And this is so much to the point of the current times, even if it was written a couple of decades ago, when this hypnosis was not so evident. That's why earlier I did not trust this poetry so much, and only now I tend to think more that somehow it is genuine. So here the mighty tyrants from their acts a danger bred, leaving many dead, and physics find no remedy. This you will see coming through shortly, maximum within a couple of years. Here the Chinese start to gain great power from a mighty bear with whom they've lain. The mighty bear has always been used in old literature as a symbol of Russia. Even a couple of decades ago it was not so clear that the Chinese, they are doing that actively, let's say since 5-10 years, silently overtaking Russia, large territories, underground cities. They are building their own highways, they're settling there. This is organized very recently. So even if the verses which I've chosen are a couple of decades old, somehow they seem to have some source of truth. I don't understand why people need to watch a few hours of TV every day if they can read this verse in 1 minute and it's all here. It's just talking for talking's sake. The king shall false promises make and plan horrific wars. and taxes rise and lively down. This is so much relevant to exactly now, our time slot. And secret food in secret hills, in ugly in his fear, he lies to kill marauders, thieves, and spies. I can't think of a better summary of their lies. And the secret food in the secret hills, of course, that's what they're doing. They are hiring private armies and, of course, securing food for them. And for those who might be figuring out that, this looks a bit like pre-apocalyptic, for them they have a nice story that don't you worry, just look at the Saturn transit and the new age will just appear around the corner in a minute. Your consciousness will change, and then whatever you think, it will manifest, and you just sit and wait. These are the prophecies which they endorse and put on first page when people look for prophecies. And about the true old prophecies, they're meticulously removing them from internet under all kinds of excuses. It is either hate speech, or you are infringing in somebody's whatever privacy rules, or usage rules, or hosting rules. Some rules they will find, but they're meticulously finding and at least removing them from search results, as they're doing with my videos. Or for people who are using more explicit language than me, they just close their accounts completely. And this is probably from the really old part of the prophecies, when pictures seem alive with movements free. This really sounds like somebody who had clear visions through time of our times. And the wives fondle cats and dogs while the men cheat on them. Love dies and marriage ceases, and even the birth rate is down. It is very, very accurate. I mean, who couple of 100 years ago could have imagined in their wildest dreams that people will let the most valuable and beautiful thing in their life die, which is love, and even see that the marriage as a institution will cease and the babies will decrease. All in all, I would say it's a little bit too accurate to be just a guess. And what is most important is that all the parts are accurate. It's not that we have few thousand verses and out of them I have chosen those that match our reality and have discarded those that don't match. No, everything matches. And the roaring harvesting machines with a man atop that seem to eat the verdant crop. And if this was written a few 100 years ago, which is actually quite possible, I think Mother Shipton she's just really one of the best. The women shall adopt a craze to dress like men and trousers wear. Yeah, which normal woman would do that? And cut off their lovely locks of hair and ride astride with brazen brow, as witches do on broomsticks now. Also, quite possibly, Mother Shipton hints about the timeline with the asteroid cracking the Earth, and they will send the dragon back to light the sky. His tail will crack upon the Earth and rend the Earth. So the story with the asteroid is not in all prophecies, but it is in some of them, like the Nina prophecies. And why I'm impressed that she even puts the same reason for cracking the earth, namely the false grandeur will stir God's anger. And in overall, I think that the Shipton poetry is worth reading because it matches the confirmed timeline which we've seen in the previous episodes very well. Here, the terrible thirst is also mentioned. First, there will be lots of floods, but there will be also a period of great drought when men will die of thirst. And during the great thirst, it will be also very, very hot everywhere, according to the other prophecies and Mother Shipton. So again, we have many, many matches. And now Jason from UK will read for you the Mother Shipton poetry. A lot of it is about events which already took place during the last few hundred years. I'm not including an analysis of that, but it only confirms that she really seems to be a genuine source. There are a couple of sources on the internet. By the way, they're getting increasingly hard to find compared to how it was, let's say, 5 years ago. And these sources explain line by line the actual historic events which she foresaw.
And now a word in uncouth rhyme of what shall be in future time. Then upside down the world shall be, and gold found at the root of tree. All England's sons that plough the land shall oft be seen with book in hand. The poor shall now great wisdom know. Great houses stand in far-flung vale, all covered o'er with snow and hail. A carriage without horse will go, disaster fill the world with woe. In London Primrose Hill shall be, in centre hold a bishop's see. Around the world men's thoughts will fly, quick as the twinkling of an eye. And water shall great wonders do, how strange, and yet it shall come true. Through towering hills proud men shall ride, no horse or ass move by his side. Beneath the water men shall walk, shall ride, shall sleep, shall even talk. And in the air men shall be seen, in white and black, and even green. A great man then shall come and go, for prophecy declares it so. In water, iron then shall float, as easy as a wooden boat. Gold shall be seen in stream and stone, in land that is yet unknown. And England shall admit a Jew. You think this strange, but it is true. The Jew that was once held in scorn shall of a Christian then be born. A house of glass shall come to pass in England, but alas, alas, a war will follow with the work, where dwells the pagan and the Turk. These states will lock in far-cast strife, and seek to take each other's life. When north shall thus divide the south, an eagle build in lion's mouth, then tax and blood and cruel war will come to every humble door. 3 times shall lovely sunny France be led to play a bloody dance. Before the people shall be free, 3 tyrant rulers shall she see. 3 rulers in succession be, each springs from different dynasty. Then when the fire-cast strife is done, England and France shall be as one. The British olive shall then next twine in marriage with a German vine. Men walk beneath and over streams, fulfilled shall be their wondrous dreams. For in those wondrous far-off days, the women shall adopt a craze to dress like men and trousers wear, and to cut off their locks of hair. They'll ride astride with brazen brow, as witches do on broomstick now. And roaring monsters with man atop does seem to eat the verdant crop, and men shall fly as birds do now, and give away the horse and plough. There'll be a sign for all to see, be sure that it'll certain be. Then love shall die, and marriage cease, and nations wane as babes decrease. And wives shall fondle cats and dogs, and men live much the same as hogs. In 1926, build houses light of straw and sticks, for then shall mighty wars be planned, and fire and sword shall sweep the land. When pictures seem alive with movements free, when boats like fishes swim beneath the sea, when men like birds shall scour the sky, then half the world, deep drenched in blood, shall die. For those who live the century through, in fear and trembling this shall do, flee to the mountains and the dens, to bog and forest and wild fens. For storms will rage and oceans roar, when Gabriel stands on sea and shore, and as he blows his wondrous horn, old worlds die and new be born. A fiery dragon will cross the sky 6 times before this earth shall die. Mankind will trembled and frightened be for the sakes held in this prophecy. For 7 days and 7 nights man will watch this awesome sight. The tides will rise beyond their ken to bite away the shores, and then the mountains will begin to roar, and earthquakes split the plain to shore. And rushing waters, flooding waters rushing in will flood the lands with such a din that mankind cowers in muddy fen and snarls about his fellow men. He bares his teeth and fights and kills, and secret food and secret hills, and ugly in his fear he lies to kill murderers, thieves and spies. And when the dragon's tail is gone, man forgets and smiles and carries on to apply himself. Too late, for mankind has earned his deserved fate. His masked smile, his false grandeur, will serve the gods their anger stir, and they will send the dragon back to light the sky. His tail will crack upon the earth and rend the earth, and man shall flee king, lord and serf. But slowly they are rooted out to seek diminishing water spout, and men will die of thirst before the oceans rise to mount the shore, and lands will crack and rend anew. You think it strange? It will come true. And in some far-off distant land, some men, oh such a tiny band, will have to leave their solid mount and span the earth, those few to count. But not on land already there, but on ocean beds stark dry and bare. Not every soul on earth will die as dragon's tail goes sweeping by. Not every land on earth will sink, but these will wallow in stench and stink of rotting bodies of beast and man, of vegetation crisped on land. But the land that rises from the sea will be dry and clean and soft and free of mankind's dirt, and therefore be the source of man's new dynasty. And those that live will ever fear the dragon's tail for many year. But time erases memory. You think it strange, but it will be. And before the race is built anew, a silver serpent comes to view, and spirit of men of like unknown, to mingle with the earth now grown cold from its heat. And these men can enlighten the minds of future man, to intermingle and show them how to live and love, and thus endow the children with a second sight, a natural thing, so that they might grow graceful, humble, and when they do, the golden age will start anew. The dragon's tail is but a sign for mankind's fall and man's decline, and before this prophecy is done, I shall be burned at the stake at one, my body singed, my soul set free. You think I utter blasphemy? You're wrong. These things have come to me. This prophecy will come to be.
So we had a tornado here in Central Europe. In America they are quite frequent, but this is the first time this region of Europe experiences anything like this. And a couple of days later, when I spoke actually to my neighbors who were in an area a couple of 100 kilometers away from here, from what you see now, then I actually understood that it is true what some people have been saying, that natural disasters are very much underreported nowadays. And I'm gonna show you now how exactly are they doing it, what kind of tricks do they have, because the next time it happens, the underreporting, it might be something that concerns you personally. And why are they doing it? I think it's pretty obvious. For them it's very convenient for the crowds to think that it is not yet a biblical apocalypse, which is actually true, but they don't want to attract the people's attention towards the biblical descriptions, because then people may then read that the system for marking of the Antichrist will be established even before his direct appearance, which means that it can be even before the apocalypse is obvious, and trapped into this, even many Christians are taking the mark of the beast. So they did report the event, some news agencies, as the Czech tornado. And if you search for it in Google, they are so eager that you read only their selected results that they're showing you, at least to me, the first 4 pages basically the same. All of them 4 pointing to the same information on their loyal satanic Wikipedia. Now, if you read the Wikipedia description of the destruction, you will be under the impression that a couple of villages, small communities as they describe them here, were badly damaged. So this is a map illustrating of what they're telling us. It's actually a very small area. This with red, it will be some 10 or maximum 20 kilometers. Quite a small area covered. But then my neighbors, they were traveling in a region a couple of 100 kilometers away in Austria, and their car looked like the moon's surface when they got back with all these craters from the tennis-size hail which they had on the road. And then from the neighbors, I also heard that in Austria, which is like a region 200 kilometers away from the so-called tornado area, the damages were extensive. The roofs of the houses in a number of villages were blown away. I was quite surprised, and I checked why didn't they report these extensive damages there as well, and then I found out, oh, actually they are reported, but as a completely separate thing. Yes, they admit somewhere towards the end of the articles that it was the same storm as the what they call Czech tornado, but still they report them as different things, actually. And then in those Wikipedia pages which they promote, they have vague mentionings that there were some related to these storm tornadoes in Poland as well. Poland, that's really even more hundreds of kilometers away. And of course, the damages of those tornadoes are not included in this one, the main one. It's exactly like they scrambled the real history. First of all, they make it into pieces so that the things seem unrelated, and then they cover with lies, coat with lies individual pieces. And instead of telling you the real important thing, what were the damages of the entire storms, which apparently covered few countries or parts of few countries, they're using it as an extra opportunity to pour more garbage into people's brains. Like here, celebrities, again, celebrities. That is so important that a celebrity went there, and a Vietnamese official. That is the important thing people should read, according to these devils. And not even a single word about the most important things, that over a large area of Europe, the crops got destroyed. This is not even mentioned. I filmed the hail, although I'm really far away from the epicenter of the place of their so-called Czech tornado, but I've never seen such a hail in my life. It started all of a sudden on a pretty sunny day and devastated my garden by the way. And what about the crops of the people who are actually near the place and within this scope of a few hundred kilometers, or many hundreds of kilometers if we include the Polish range? This is a very large area. Even in my faraway region, there isn't a single apricot anymore on the apricot trees. Here were the beautiful topinambours, which were fine when I was making the previous videos. Now half of them are simply broken in two. People who grow more like soft crops like lettuce or onions, that is all completely devastated even where I am, and here it is counted even as not even affected area. That means that most of the crop is destroyed in what they call somewhat affected areas, and they happen to be very, very large, a couple of 100 square kilometers. And this is just a very gentle early warning of what is about to come and cover more and more areas. And the sad thing is that the people who are already cornered in front of their computers, locked down, when they figure out what is happening, it would be too late for them to get food supplies. And it will happen also gradually, according to the prophecies. The famine will start gradually. They will distract the deluded people with other lies, like when it starts getting a bit tight with food, they will introduce these ratios. You can't buy a lot, and they will be bamboozling the people with the talk about saving the planet. You have to go green, and that's why you need to eat worms and beetles and other garbage, and if you do that, you are a honorable citizen who is thinking about the green gases and the pollution and other shameless lie just to make you eat trash, while they are organizing the destruction of the real food. They executed by means of these programs of maintaining high prices, and that's why they, dump butter and all kinds of good eatables, just burn it or destroy it, so that people can't buy it at low prices. And then they put up this talk, eat worms to save the planet, because if you eat good food, you will have a carbon imprint or whatever they call it. They found all these trains in Russia when they were organizing the famines during the staged so-called communist revolutions, which were also parasiting or organized by the parasites to create the famine at that time. They loaded up as much as they can food and money, also to create scarcity of money, in trains, and just dump them at dead-end rails in wild places in such quantities so that they can starve millions. And another important conclusion from this storm is that it damaged mostly the cultivated vegetables. The wild plants, they survived much better. So the lesson is that we should not rely so much on agriculture when things start getting worse. Wild food will be way more reliable, not just because of hail, but also because of the various pest species, all kinds of slugs and jumping animals, who will be so happy when their relatives, the parasites, rule the earth. And I noticed that a relatively very small percentage of my audience was interested in the wild edible plants video, and this is not a very good sign, because just by watching that series, which is about to continue, and with a few simple trips to the wilderness, you will learn a lot, and that could be essential one day. So using the search engines of the internet, I tried to find some sort of resource with statistics of the natural disasters, preferably even historic statistics. However, the search engines, if something meaningful exists, certainly it is not featured at a visible place by the search engines. The search engines advertise agencies that brag that they have satellites monitoring every ant on Earth, but sadly none of them would have any meaningful even list of the disasters, what to speak of some usable statistics at all. Probably if we had proper statistics and news about the increasing rate of the natural disasters, if that was the case, probably many more people would be aware that we are closely before the apocalypse, very, very near. And I'm so thankful to the destiny that sometimes I exchange messages with some of the viewers of the channel, and that's the only way I actually found out that there are other people who still can think and are not accepting the mark. Otherwise, everything around is absolutely robotized. In the very rare case that I speak with people from the outside world here, I don't even ask them, but they are all programmed and just repeat to themselves and everybody that they meet that they have to accept the new normal and that is the only way to go. It has become almost impossible to meet a real person who understands that their so-called new normal is actually insanity built on the fundament of deceit conjured by satanic worshippers. And the latest addition to the collection of the Jal tricks from the earlier episode, now where I live they have even like movements, protection, protect the unfixed people so that they don't have less rights. And they even have some sort of government paid commissions and people. All they do is just empty talk because, of course, without fixation, here one is not allowed on public gatherings and museums and whatever long list they have of privileges for the fixed people. So of course it's total farce and waste of time to listen to whatever they say that the unfixed people should not have less privileges. But the very clever trick inside this particular scam is that it is all centered and the talk is only about fixed and unfixed people. And the test, wow, that doesn't even exist. Although the people with tests, they have practically the same privileges as the fixed. They have the same mark of the beast that, I have complied. And what chemicals or worms or scary things might be in the tests, we don't know. That is not clear. But obviously the entire test thing is very fishy because it's forced again by people who are Satanists. I mean, they worship, they do devil worship on the record. And again, for the test, you get some sort of mark of the beast, basically, certificate for that. So many people are falling for that. Oh, I'm not fixed, so I'm clear of the mark. But the test is just a test, just a test, just a mark.